It's 7:10 on the WGAN Morning News, and it's Friday morning. Hour 2 begins now, and it's kind of candidate day around here today. We're going to have Bruce Poliquin joining us at 8 o'clock talking about the campaign in the 2nd Congressional District, and we are doing the same right now with another candidate, Tiffany Bond, who is going to appear on the ballot this November. She's with us now. Tiffany, how are you this morning?
You know, I am lovely. Thank you so much for asking.
You are welcome, and thanks so much for joining us here this morning. So let's begin by asking a very simple question. Why are you running? And tell us a little bit about the campaign here in the 2nd District. Obviously, you have an incumbent in Jared Golden that's currently sitting in the seat. You have a former incumbent that's running against him. And you did run, of course, in the past in 2018. And we can certainly talk about that in a moment. But I'd just love to get your thoughts on the race as you see it right now.
You know, both gentlemen have had a chance. And I don't love what they've done with it. My day job is I'm a family law attorney, and so I see a bunch of holes in our federal law, things that hurt people. So, for example, when people are separating out, sometimes we need that support network that we've paid for our whole lives, and it's just not there in the way we need it to be. It doesn't really help people transition to the next stage of their life. So I touch a lot of federal law all the time, and they're just not paying attention in a way that helps most of us. So I think we need somebody who actually works with the law, writing the law.
So if you were to be elected to Congress, I suppose, what would be your, the main issues you want to work on besides that? I mean, obviously, Congress right now is debating everything from, climate change issues to taxes. You've got student loan debt stuff that's now obviously coming to the forefront with the president's decision this week and so much more. What would you be working on if you get elected?
Oh, my gosh, there's so much to do. I mean, we have a Congress that has spent decades in legislative neglect. They've kicked a lot of the big issues. So you mentioned climate change. That's certainly a big issue. Immigration, taxes, healthcare. We have all these hot button issues, and they just aren't getting addressed. And, there's probably at least a dozen that are right at the top. But certainly the ones that impact folks in Maine the most are things like healthcare, taxes. The ACA is something that, much like the student loan relief, has helped a lot of people, but maybe not in the best way, and maybe not in a way that fixes the system well. And so I think we've got some really big systemic problems that need to get addressed, so that we have a government that makes wise and judicious shared purchasing decisions for us.
Now, obviously, you're running as neither a Republican nor a Democrat. You, on your issues page on your website, that's actually the thing you lead off with here. When you're talking about the issues you care about, though, I must admit, it does seem to be somewhat of the center left. Could you give me maybe a picture into your mind of how you differentiate yourself, particularly from the Democratic Party, and why, frankly, you find it, insufficient, Jared Golden and the typical Democrats you see in Congress and whatnot, what they would be working on?
It's so funny that I get painted as a Democrat. I actually grew up in a Republican household. So I don't really aim for left or right. I aim for north. And that means I like things that are cost effective, that make sure that they're making a good use of the money that we've put into Congress and paid in our taxes. And you'll hear me, I have 3 business degrees. I have an associate's, a bachelor's, and a master's in business. You'll hear me sound like that when I'm talking about making sure we're using return on investment. I also have a human rights minor, so I think that's a floor. I think they look at return on investment. I think that we do so trying not to violate any human rights. I look at a lot of what we do as shared purchasing decisions, and I look at a lot of what we do as making sure the people that we've hired are sort of empowering our decisions. And, whether those issues are left or right really varies over time. So, for example, I don't like the government making medical decisions. That's something that could be very left or it could be libertarian. It depends on the year that you're asking. So I really, I'm hard to put in a political box like that, because my views, although they've evolved a little bit over time, haven't shifted too drastically. But the parties tend to move around a lot. Republicans and Democrats swap every 50 to 100 years, it seems. So, if you like human rights, if you like fiscally prudent government, if you like, making sure that we have the tools that we need to be successful without the government being overbearing, that's kind of the model I fit in. And honestly, a lot of Maine fits in that box. It's the non-box box. I want a common sense, reasonable policy. When I was going around getting signatures, people asked what I was, and I'm like, I'm boring, I'm competent, I'm reasonable. I don't focus on a lot of theatrics. I just want the law to work.
We're speaking with Tiffany Bond. She's a candidate in Maine's 2nd Congressional District this year. And she was once a candidate as well back in 2018. And that's actually, I think something we should probably talk about while we have you here. Back then you ran against these two same individuals and got about 5% of the vote and were eliminated in ranked choice voting. And in fact, that is sort of one of the questions I want to ask you. I think that particularly on the right, you are viewed as, I'm going to do air quotes here for the audience on stream, a spoiler candidate, someone who has no realistic chance of winning, but somebody that might end up helping Jared Golden get elected in a second round here, given that they think that that's what happened in the first campaign and race. I guess my question is twofold. Do you obviously reject that belief, I would assume? And then more importantly, do you have a belief in your realistic chance of winning the race? I mean, do you actually think you can take out both of these two people? And if not, what is the point of the race?
So in 2018, I'd never run for office before, and I had to learn how to run for office. And I was pretty open during 2018 that, when the average citizen tries to participate in government, what is this experience? And I guessed that would sort of be learning how to run for office. And if I won, great. I think that I do the job well, and I think that a lot of people would be very happy with me doing the job. The way that, if you look at my reviews online, I'm a fairly well-reviewed attorney. I'm very diligent, and I try to make sure that my clients' needs are taken care of. But we have ranked choice voting. And there's a reason why we put ranked choice voting in. And not everybody loves the system, but most of us do. That's why we voted for it. It lets people who aren't in a party have a better opportunity to run for office. It lets people take risk on independence without either side calling them a spoiler. I mean, there can be spoilers, if you want to call them that, on either side. The Republicans have libertarians. The Democrats have the Green Party. But the bottom line is we should have a much wider range of options, and we should have more thoughtful debate than Team Red or Team Blue, because we end up with these just nutty shouting matches that don't really talk about how we make our world better and how we have a more effective government. So, I do reject that it was a spoiler. I had maybe 17 followers on social media when I started. Nobody knew who I was. I've now had a pretty consistent social media presence. I've had a fairly consistent campaign presence. Folks sort of are getting to know what they're going to get with me. And it isn't left or right. It's what makes sense. So I try really hard to focus on that. And I do a lot of things that the parties, I don't know if can't get away with, won't tolerate. I don't know. I haven't been at a party in decades, so I don't know what the boundaries are for them. But for example, I don't really want people to give me campaign dollars. I think that's wasteful and gross. We saw the Senate race in 2020, and they blew through, $100 million, torturing us with those awful ads and mailers. And did anybody change their mind other than to dislike people more? I think we should be taking those same dollars and investing them in our community. I've actually asked people to do that instead of fundraising. I call it main raising. If you want to give me $5, $50, whatever, please don't. Take that same money, go shop at a small business, tell them that I asked you to invest in the community so I get the marketing credit, but that money actually goes into our community. We've had decades of people telling us they want to help the community without actually helping our community. So I try to be a lot more authentic than you get out of either political party.
Well, we don't have much time left for this last question for you, I suppose, but related to that money, sort of statement that you just made there, how do you plan to take on and even get noticed enough in a campaign like this when both of your opponents are going to have several $1 million? The outside groups that are targeting to the seat and trying to get them elected are going to have millions of dollars. I've been doing politics a long time, Tiffany, and as much as I respect the concept of trying not to fall prey to all that fundraising, and just to introduce yourself to the voters, it takes money. I mean, you have to do mailers, you can't knock on everybody's door, right? You got to do TV ads. You got to do something that means that somebody's even going to hear your name. How do you do that without a large amount of money behind you?
Well, see, I think main raising scales, right? If 10 people do it, no harm, I lose, and 10 people got sales for their small business, right? Not a big deal. But what if 10,000 or 20,000 or 30,000 people think, you know what, this is a really good idea, and we all complain about money in politics, and I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to put a little bit of money towards actually helping somebody in Maine. And, I think it scales. I think that if I get 10,000 people to do it, I think I win. When's the last time somebody directly helped you in politics?
All right, Tiffany, unfortunately, we're out of time, so I have to leave it there. But Tiffany Bond, nice enough to join us here this morning, candidate for the Maine 2nd Congressional District. This year, you'll see her on the ballot. Appreciate you spending some time with us this morning. We may have an opportunity or two to talk between now and Election Day, but thanks so much for seeing us today, and we'll see you again soon.